All right, so in goal 4.4, we are factoring 4-term polynomials. When you factor 4-term polynomials, you factor by grouping. There are different types of grouping that you can do, but we're going to stick solely with 2-2 grouping. So we start by taking the first 2 terms and grouping them. Second 2 terms, grouping them. You look for a common factor from the first 2 terms. So in this particular question, A is common to both the first and second term. When I divide A into AC, I'm left with C. My sign comes down. A divided into AB leaves me B. Whatever this sign is, that's the sign that comes down, so plus. And then I look for a common factor from the second 2 terms, and in this case that common factor is 3. When I divide 3 into 3C, I'm left with C. Sign comes down. 3 divided into 3B is B. So what I've done here is I have taken a polynomial that had 4 terms in it, and I've gotten it down to 2 terms. This is considered 1 term plus 1 term. Once I do this step, these parentheses must match. So C plus B and C plus B, these must match. If they don't match, you're doing something incorrectly because they have to be the same. So because I now have it down to 2 terms, I'm looking for what's common to the 2 terms that I have now. That common factor is a quantity or a group. It's what's in the parentheses. So the C plus B comes out as the common factor. So when I take C plus B from this term, I'm left with my A, plus, when I take C plus B from the second term, I'm left with that 3. So once I take my common factor of this quantity out, what you have left on the outsides makes up your other parentheses, or what's left after you divide the C plus B in. It's possible sometimes that you can factor more, so always look for that difference of squares. This one doesn't have it, but it's possible to have it. That's my final answer. Second question. Common factor from my first 2 terms is x. X divided into x squared is x. X into minus 2x leaves me minus 2. Common factor from the second 2 terms, positive y. Y divided into xy leaves me x. Y divided into 2y minus 2. So again, you'll see that the parentheses match, and that needs to happen every time. So then my x minus 2 comes out as the common factor, and what's left on the outside makes up the other parentheses. Doesn't matter which one you write first. Again, always check to see, can I factor again? But I cannot in this case. Example 3. Common factor of the first 2 terms is 3x to the second. Make sure you get out the greatest common factor. 3x to the second into 3x to the third leaves me x, plus 3x to the second into 6x to the second, positive 2. Whatever that sign is, that's the sign that comes down. When you bring down a negative, you're taking out a negative common factor, which means our signs are going to change. I don't see anything common to the second two terms except 1, because 1 is common to everything. This is one of the only times where you take a common factor out of 1. Normally, we don't take out 1 as a common factor, but here we need to have something there. So I'm going to take out negative understood 1. When I divide negative 1 into negative x, I'm left with positive x, and negative 1 into negative 2 leaves me positive 2. So again, you'll notice that my signs changed because I brought down this negative. This term in my parentheses became positive, and this term in my parentheses became positive, the opposite of what they were. So again, the parentheses must match. If they don't match, then you'll know you're doing something wrong. So my x plus 2 comes out as the common factor, and then what's left on the outsides will make up the other parentheses. And again, it's possible that it could factor more. In this case, it does not. 3 is not a square, so that's keeping us from factoring that second parenthesis. And then my last example. Common factor from the first two, common factor from the second two. Common factor from the first two, 9x to the second. 9x to the second, divided into 9x to the third, leaves me x, or 1x, minus 9x to the second, divided into 18x squared, is 2. Whatever this sign is, that's the sign that comes down. So I will be taking out a negative common factor here. My common factor for the second two is 4. When I divide negative 4 into negative 4x, I'm left with positive x. And negative 4 into positive 8, negative 2. So again, when I bring down this negative, my signs are going to change. So when I divided into this first term, this term became positive. And when I divided into the second term, that term became negative. If you're not sure, mentally do the redistribution. Negative 4 times x, negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 2, positive 8. And again, the parentheses have to match. And if they don't, you'll know you're doing something wrong. So this x minus 2 comes out as my common factor. And what's left on the outsides, after I take that out, makes up the other parentheses. And then again, we check every time, can I factor some more? This time, our answer is yes. This created a difference of squares. Anytime you're looking to factor more, that's what it's going to be, a difference of squares. That's why it's so important to recognize what a difference of squares is and looks like. So my x minus 2 comes down, but my 9x squared minus 4 will break into 3x times 3x, 2 times 2, plus and minus. Then I'm finished with that factor. So again, there are other types of grouping that we can do, but we will do solely just the 2-2 grouping.